Hi everyone, my name is Monique.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Board Games, where we just take a few games that we've played recently and we share our thoughts on them.
Yes, some of these games are games we've been holding on to for a little while. Some we got at Gen Con or around the time of Gen Con, and we finally played them enough times to talk about them.
Yes, I don't think there's really a running theme. These are generally smaller box games or faster family weight style games, so no heavy games in this episode.
Sure.
But before we get into it, we do have a couple of things that we'd like to discuss. The first thing being, we just opened up our YouTube memberships. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that we have a Patreon. And so they're going to be the exact same thing. We basically opened up our memberships because we received an email from Patreon saying that they're going to be doing, there are going to be some updates that are not necessarily ideal.
Yeah, so essentially the Apple App Store is imposing specific rate increases to be part of the App Store for in-app purchases. So then we said, well, we already make videos on YouTube, so we might as well open up YouTube memberships if that's going to be the case. So it's not going to affect anybody that's already on Patreon. It's only for new people who join via Patreon. They'll be subject to these fees, which essentially means that the money goes more to Apple than towards the creators that you're supporting.
Yeah, and so we just wanted to mention this just in case you see the join button. If you're a Patreon member, we've already discussed this with our Patreon community that the content is going to be the same. So do not join both if you're interested in any of this.
Not, yeah.
It's one or the other. And with YouTube memberships, the only thing that's different is there are emojis and badges
yeah.
that are specific to people who join via YouTube. So if you'd like to be able to comment and see like a thing next to your name, or to be able to use these special emojis, because we had some emojis made of Dexter. And if you'd like to be able to comment using little Dexter emojis, kind of expressing your emotions, I guess, then you can use them.
Right. So the little join button, you're actually not going to see it on the YouTube app if you're an Apple user for the same reasons why the whole Patreon thing that we mentioned. So if you are interested in the memberships, we do recommend that you check it out via a laptop or an Android device.
And to be honest, we were thinking about starting memberships for a while now, because when we first started on Patreon, some people had expressed that they would prefer to not leave YouTube. So some people didn't, join the community because they don't want to go on Patreon. So this is just another way for people to have options, because, like I said, the content is going to be the same on either.
Right.
And if you have no idea what we're talking about, we basically have another platform that we post content to, and now it's going to be on YouTube as well. And the content that we typically post are monthly vlogs that we do every single month, where we talk about just stuff that we don't post on the channel. We talk about games that we had played at like conventions or things that we are working on specifically. Our community also gets to vote on the playthrough and review games that we cover. We also do some live streams, some podcasts, basically lots of random stuff. Anyway, that is memberships. If you're interested in joining either, we always have a link to our Patreon in the description, and now you can just click join via YouTube. And the other thing that we wanted to mention are content coming up on our channel. So the first thing is a bit of a disclaimer. In September, we have a lot of Kickstarters launching.
Crowdfunding games, yeah.
Crowdfunding games, not necessarily Kickstarters, but yes, they are. It's crowdfunding content. And you may have already noticed that within the last week and a half or so. We don't typically post that much crowdfunding content in succession like that. But we just want you to know that we didn't suddenly start taking on a bunch more projects. These are all projects that were scheduled to launch within the past 3 months.
They got pushed.
Yes.
So basically, publishers will reach out and say, hey, we're not set to launch in July. Our new date is XYZ September. And then all of a sudden, we're getting hit from a lot of different angles saying, so we basically have to figure out on the calendar how are we going to be able to post all these different videos. And it just kind of came to an apex in September.
Yeah, so the way that crowdfunding works in the board gaming industry is if something typically impacts, one project, there's a pretty strong likelihood that it'll impact several just because of how the industry works. And so some of these projects we agreed to like in the beginning of the year, and they were scheduled to launch in July, and they all got rescheduled or postponed to September. So we just wanted to let you know, for anybody out there, we know that there is, a community of people who watch our videos who are interested in crowdfunding campaigns and others who are not. So for those who are not crowdfunding people, please just bear with us through this time. This this time will pass. And, like I said, we've still kept up the same timing in terms of accepting projects. As for review type content, we have this Let's Talk Board Games episode, but we've also been working on our upcoming playthrough and review video for a long time. This game has been taking us a very long time to prepare for. So, naturally, if we're spending a lot of time on one game, then the overall quantity of reviews is going to be decreased. But just, stay tuned for that. Hopefully that'll be going out next week.
And so anybody who's curious about the game Monique's talking about, I don't think she mentioned it.
Sorry.
It is Arcs. So we'll be playing a full playthrough of that with the Leaders and Lore expansion. So we'll have a playthrough and review coming up in the next coming weeks.
And then it'll be a spooky season.
Yes.
So we are approaching October. I have no idea how that happened. Time went really quickly this year.
3 months left, yeah.
And so in October, we do have a lot of spooky content planned. I don't necessarily know if it's spooky in like a horror kind of way.
Halloween theme-ish games,
Yeah. I sort of lump fantasy themes into Halloween because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Sure.
But stay tuned for that because we do have a few more thematic games planned for October.
Yeah, for that time of year.
All right. And otherwise, let's get into the game, shall we?
Okay, yes. So all these games that we are going to talk about, we do have to mention, were review copies sent to us for review by the respective publishers. So the first one, we are going to skip over spooky season and go straight into the holidays in winter.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Jokkmokk, the winter market,
Perfect
of course.
timing.
Yes.
Right?
So this is designed by Henrik Larsson and published by WizKids. And so we have played this a couple times, and we've only played it at 2 players, though.
Yes.
So we have to speak on it from the two-player
Players' perspective. And the game does play 1 to 5 players.
Yeah.
So this is definitely going to be a game that will change depending on player count. Because in this game, there is a board, and the game comes with several different types of cards. I believe there are 18. And each type of card is thematically, I believe, something that you would find at this market. Now, we've never been to this market, so we can't personally vouch for it. If you've been to the market before, we would love to hear how it is.
I think it's in Sweden.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
But essentially, this game is a direct combination of a rondelle and set collection. Because over the course of the game, you're basically just going to be moving around this board, picking up cards and placing them into your scoring area. And you do that over and over and over again, all the way around this rondelle, until there are no cards left. And that signals the end of the game. Now, you're not playing with all 18 different types. You're just going to choose a few types. And the rulebook actually recommends which types to include, depending on what kind of experience you want to have.
Right, like your first game, it's like use these 5 different scoring parameters. The next game, use these ones. So
Right.
and then eventually you can just kind of mix and match.
Yes, and this is one of those games where the player who is the furthest behind in the rondelle gets to go next. So sort of like Takedo, if you've ever played that game before. And on your turn, you can go as far forward as you'd like around this board in order to claim the card that you want.
But you're passing on all of those different items in the
Yes.
market that you're skipping over.
And again, there is a wide variety of scoring criteria. So that'll impact the strategy and decision making in the game. So as an example, the hot dogs will score you the number of points indicated on the card. But at the end of the game, whoever has the most number of hot dog symbols has to lose half of their points.
Right.
There are sets such as the snow lantern or the patchwork that require you to form your cards in front of you in a spatial arrangement sort of way in order to score points. Some sets will score you extra points at the end of the game, depending on how many of them you were able to collect. Some sets will allow you to gift cards to others. So as you can see, there is a wide variety of scoring criteria. And there's also 3 different levels of difficulty. So you can really tailor your experience by deciding which sets to include in your game.
Yeah, so that's kind of nice because if you're playing with like small children, then you can kind of tailor a game that is more suitable for them. More seasoned gamers and more strategy, you can also do that, and family members, things like that. So for me, the 2-player experience was a little bit left to be desired because of the openness of the rondelle. But because it plays up to 5 players now, unfortunately, we've not played it at the higher player counts. But I could see at 3, 4, and 5, there's definitely going to be more jockeying for position. And can you justify in these rondelle style games going so far out and then hoping that when it comes back around to you, the cards that you're actually looking for are still going to be there.
Right.
So in a 2-player game, it's like I just have to outpace you versus outpacing 3 other people who are going for the same exact items.
Right.
So The two-player experience, like I said, leaves a little bit to be desired, but I see the potential at a higher player count for a better experience.
Yeah. I do agree. I really like the look of the game. I think the art is beautiful. And the fact that there are so many different sets of cards makes it interesting because it's just a system at this point, right? It's basically just a board, and then the game is the way that you create or curate the cards that you
Modular,
use.
yeah.
Yeah,
at
it's
that point,
set collection
Set
through
collection,
and through.
modular, yeah.
And so, because of the fact that it's so open in a two-player game, the other strategic aspect of the game, which is that rondelle mechanism, is a bit lost.
Right.
Because there's nothing really stopping us from just taking every single card
Yeah.
that's on the rondelle.
Like a
Whereas
treadmill, yeah.
in like a 5-player game, if somebody goes really far ahead and your pickings are very limited, then you really are going to have a tougher time deciding how far to progress forward in the market.
And like that example, the hot dogs in a two-player game, it's like, well, either you're gonna have the most or I'm gonna have the most. And so like you can kind of start counting like, well, Monique's picked up I think 4 hot dog symbols, so I can justify having 3 because she'll have to discard down half of hers at 4. But it can kind of get lost maybe in like a 4 or 5-player game where you're like trying to figure out like I can't remember how many you took, how many did you take, and then now I'm okay, fine, hot dogs are great right now, but oh, look at these horses, these score a lot of points, so then you kind of get sidetracked. So enjoyable game. I think we're going to keep this one in the collection, definitely for its family weightness of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you are somebody who is like a gamer, you're really deep into the hobby and you're looking for games to play with people who are not maybe necessarily in the hobby, this is a great one because it plays really quickly, and like we were mentioning, you can really tailor the set collection aspect. And also, if you really enjoy set collection games, this is a set collection game through and through.
Yeah, I like this. I like this mechanism. Whoever is furthest behind gets to go forward. That it's such a used mechanism,
The
but
rondelle
it works so
system.
well in so many games, and I'm still not tired of it because I think it is one of the fairest ways to go about playing this
Turn
style
order?
of game. Turn order, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because it's like, well, you made the decision to go that far, so
Yeah.
now you're stuck with it. So,
Okay.
So yeah, I just really like that mechanism in games, and I also enjoy set collection games as well.
But that's essentially it. That is Jokkmokk, the winter market. If you've ever been to this market, again, please let us know what it's like in the comments down below. But yeah, there you go. All right, next we have a few small box titles from All Play, 2 of which we don't have with us right now.
Don't physically have
So we're just going to have to show a picture of them.
I left it at my office.
But the third one is a game called Things in Rings.
Yes.
So this, besides Arcs, this is probably the game that we played the most of recently.
Since coming back from Gen Con,
Yes.
Arcs and this, I don't know, we haven't really tracked our plays, but these are the 2 games that we have played,
we played the
absolutely
most.
the most together.
We actually talked about this a little bit in our Gen Con wrap-up video. But like I was mentioning, all 3, Things in Rings, Panda Panda Panda, and Fairies.
Panda and Fairies,
Those are the 3 games that we're going to be talking about today from All Play. And I believe I added one too many pandas in that title.
2 pandas.
But
Panda,
let's
Panda.
just go ahead and start with Things in Rings,
Since
shall
it's
we?
here, yes.
So this is a game designed by Peter C. Hayward, and it is Dr. Seuss themed in art, but not in playing style. And so this is a party game of sorts. And the way that it works is one player is going to be the knower, and all other players are going to be the finder.
Yeah.
And so the knower is going to have 3 different categories of cards that they're going to assign to 3 rings that you'll create via these strings. You're basically going to overlap them so that they form a Venn diagram.
Venn diagram, yep.
Each ring corresponds to a specific category of things. So, as an example, one ring is having to do with the word, like the pattern in a word.
So it could be like
number of syllables.
number of letters, an odd number of letters,
Yes.
or even numbers, so something like that.
Another ring has to do with the context of the word, which means how the word is used in society or stuff like that. And the third one are attributes. So maybe it's the physical attributes of the word, etc.
Yeah, it could be like something like is cold, or
Yes.
is hot, is
Right.
flammable,
And as for context, that could be something like found in a house or
found in a kitchen drawer.
yes,
Something
stuff like
like
that. That is the most difficult one out of the 3 for me to conceptualize. And so at the start of the game, the knower will choose 3 categories that they're going to assign to those 3 things. And you'll also seed the table with some starting cards so that people might have an idea as to what these categories are. And then everybody else around the table will also have a hand of cards. And the object of the game is to be the first person to
shed your cards.
To shed your cards.
You want to be out of cards.
Yes.
And that's how you win.
Right. And nobody else except for the knower really knows what the categories are in those three things. So as an example, maybe the word category starts with the letter S. I don't actually know if that's a category in there, but that's an example of what a category could look like. Maybe at the start of the game, the board will be seated with a shoe in that circle.
Yep.
Now it'll go to whoever the first player is. And so if Naveen is one of the knowers and he has a stove picture in his hand, he might choose to place it there. And if he were to place it in that circle, and if you were to get it right, then he can continue placing cards from his hand.
Right.
If you were to get it wrong, then his turn would end and he would draw a new card from the deck.
And if I get it wrong, the knower, the person who seeded the thing, will actually pick up that card, that stove card, and place it where it actually intersects or belongs within the three rings of the Venn diagram.
Correct. And so this is a Venn diagram, which means the circles are overlapping.
Right.
And so as an example, if the other category was maybe stuff found in a house, and Naveen placed stove only in the word circle, then whoever the knower is will pick up that card and place it where those two rings intersect.
Things found in a house and words intersect. And then there's also, because there's three rings, there could be a potential for it to meet right in the dead center of the Venn diagram.
Yes.
So it makes it very kind of complicated because you start noticing patterns.
Yeah.
But then you're like, starts with an S,
Yeah.
found in house, but I don't know about the attribute.
Right. And you have to be very observant about the cards that are being played.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't actually have to figure out what the categories are. You just have to play out all your cards. That's literally the only goal.
Yeah, you don't have to name like, that is things in a house. This starts with letter S. All you have to do is just be good enough to shed your cards.
Yes.
And then at the end, when it's revealed, you're like, okay, good, I was right.
Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know that it's a bit confusing to conceptualize just from hearing what the game is like. It's one of those things where you have to play it. Like, you have to play a couple of turns of it. I really didn't understand it until we were like halfway through the game.
Yeah, this was actually taught to us at our Patreon meetup at Gen Con. So that's when we first were introduced to it. So thank you so much for teaching that. And we had a really good time playing it. But even that, just during the teach, it's like, I get what you're saying, but how do I interact with this kind of game? And so once you get about halfway through, then you start realizing as soon as the knower starts picking up cards and placing it in the appropriate slots, that's kind of where it starts to kind of click. At least that's how it was for me. But just from like, here is the teach overall, it was very, very hard to conceptualize at first.
Yeah, and the categories come in different levels of difficulty, and you can sort of decide as the knower when to take from the easy deck or the difficult deck. The hard categories are really hard if you're not aware of what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, there was a mixture of opinions about the game around the table. I really, really enjoyed it. And one of the main reasons why is because, for a party game, I'm not one who historically likes games such as Codenames, where it's a party game technically, but also a word game. And the reason why is because there's a lot of downtime in between your turns.
In Codenames.
In Codenames specifically.
Yeah.
And when it is your turn, you're basically just pointing at one or two words and then your turn's over. In this game, because you are so confused a majority of the time about what is going on and what the categories are, you're in it. I feel like I'm thinking the entire time.
And you're in it for
I'm
yourself,
engaged.
right? Because you're the one that's trying to, versus in a team game in like Codenames, you can hide in 4 and 4.
That's true.
Maybe you're the fourth most extroverted person, so you're not contributing as much. But in this one, it's kind of like you're looking down at the table. You're like, well, she picked that up and moved that there. I could have swore that was an S category, but 3 of the words were S. She put a 4th S in there. That doesn't fit. Okay, well, everything I think about that is completely wrong. So your brain is constantly working and thinking in this particular one versus in a game like Codenames.
Right. And now the one thing is it does not produce like a perfect gaming experience because it can be quite frustrating for a couple of reasons. The first thing is it's very subjective on the...
Some of them can be pretty subjective.
Very subjective on the role of the knower, especially. Things are subjective anyway. Like, is that technically flammable? Well, I don't have this in my house, but it can technically exist in a house. You know what I mean?
The reason why we keep saying this flammable one is because Monique and I played a game.
Yes.
Where flammable is flammable. It was the attribute. And I had volcano.
Volcanoes are not flammable. After we mentioned that, I think, in our previous video, and people have agreed with me that volcanoes are not flammable. They
not
don't catch fire.
Yeah, I guess
They
you don't throw a matchstick
explode.
into like the basin of a
Yeah,
volcano.
it's
or
not
something. I don't
gonna.
know.
It's not gonna make the volcano go off. It's
But
not.
everything could be technically flammable if you throw it in fire, right?
And this is
Yeah.
the subjective
Yeah.
potential issue of the game.
Right.
You also have to really be responsible. You have a responsibility as a knower to lead the people around the table.
You have to be right.
You have
Yeah,
to be
you
right.
you can't accidentally like, ooh, I
Yeah.
put it in between these two, but actually it really did belong in all three because
Yes.
that can really throw off the game.
Yeah, aside from the subjectivity, like
Right.
you could just be completely wrong. Like maybe like, oh, I didn't read that right.
Like that
and
is actually
you'll-
found in a house.
You'll
Oops.
break the game.
Sorry.
Yeah. So those things aside, obviously it is for a more of a specific group of gamers, but I really, really enjoyed it. This is a
Yeah.
one of the more creative party games, especially that I played in a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm not typically a huge fan of word games, but just the entire package of this. It's so small. The artwork is really, really cute. It's Dr. Seuss themed, which I find
we
to be
both really like,
endearing,
yeah.
even though it has really nothing to do with the gameplay. But yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I could see this one being so far on one of our lists coming up at the end of
Oh.
the year. We both really enjoy this one. There is actually a 2-player version of this game as well,
Yeah.
which we have played.
Yes.
So
And it's
we
not
should prob-
bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Because you basically have a timer.
Yes.
You both will lose if the one finder does not win in a certain amount of time.
Correct. Yeah. So the person who has all the knowledge in a 2-player game will have X amount of cards to help lead the person who's looking for the solutions in a to shed their cards. If they
Yes.
don't do it in a certain amount of time, then you both lose.
Right. And that's essentially it for Things in Rings. Now, like we're mentioning, there are 2 other all-play games that we wanted to discuss, and they're actually a part of the small box collection that is either releasing or is already out.
They're out now,
In
yeah.
fact, we have 2 of them
We have
with
2
us.
other ones.
Yes.
These are ones that we have not played, but will most likely show up on another Let's Talk Board Games.
Yes, and just so you have an idea as to
the
how
size.
big these games are, the other 2 games that we're going to be discussing are the exact same box size, and they all have the same artist.
Yeah.
It's Sai Beppu, a
Beppu,
Japanese
Japanese
artist
artist, yep.
who does really, really, really cute art.
Yes,
So they're
very
all
good.
really endearing to look at. But they're designed by different people. So this is Rainbow and Prey. We haven't played them yet because these 2 require higher player counts. But the other 2 that we did play are a game called Fairy and one called Panda Panda. So let's talk about Fairy. Fairy is a push your luck, very quick
Hand gesture.
game.
It's a push your luck hand gesture card counting game, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd guess so. I think so.
Yeah.
So the way that the game works is there is a deck of cards. I believe there are 3 suits.
3 suits. There's 21 total cards.
Yes. And I believe the cards are numbered 1 to 21.
I think so. Yep.
And so the way that the game works is at the start of the game, we're going to draw a card. And then everybody is going to simultaneously try to guess if the next card is of higher value, in which you would gesture
Point
by
upward,
pointing
yeah.
up. If it's lower value, if it's the same
Same suit.
I think is like this.
Yeah.
Or if the next card is going to show one of 3 fairies that are in the deck.
You
So
make this hand
fairy.
gesture. Fairy.
And everybody will guess at the same time.
It's
and
like
then
1, 2, 3, up.
Fairy.
Something like that. Yeah,
and then you
exactly.
reveal it
Yeah.
based off of just what you assume. This is a
Yeah, so
push your luck
let's
game.
say the first card was, again, the cards are numbered 1 through 21. The first card was a 4. So a safe bet would say, most likely, more likely than not, it's going to be a higher value.
Yes.
So if you're correct in terms of the directionality of the card relative to the last one, you get 2 points.
Yes, 2 points. And if you guessed same suit and you are correct,
get
then you get
4
4
points.
points.
Yeah.
If you guessed the fairy, that is a whopping 7 points.
7 points,
So
yes.
obviously it's really hard to nail.
There's only 3 of them in
only
the
3 of
deck,
them.
so you that's where the card counting kind of comes in. So as you see cards getting whittled down, are you willing to take the chance to go for a fairy? Maybe when the fairy becomes a 1 in 4 shot, are you willing to go for 7 points? The caveat though is you will lose 1 point for every incorrect guess. No matter what, you have to guess. So
Yes.
it's not like you can just kind of wait for that moment
Right.
and just play very safe. But it's kind of just a silly, fun little game.
Yeah, it's very, very quick.
yeah.
Once a third fairy is revealed, then that ends the game, and whoever has the highest score wins. There is a little card too that you use with one hand to keep your score.
Yeah.
And you're basically going to be playing this game two-handed. One hand that'll be your score, and the other hand that's going to do all the gesturing.
It's silly. You're literally holding a scorecard, and you start at 0, and then as you score points, you just slide your hand up or slide it down.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You could obviously put down and put a token of some sort on it.
Yeah, but it's just a part of
silly.
the.
It's part of the thing. It's kind of like if you're at a bar or something like that. It's like a perfect little bar game.
Yeah, historically there are a lot of games out there that play on that gameplay of guess what card is next. Even with just a regular deck of cards. I remember as a kid we would do that sometimes. And this is sort of a play on that, but with a twist because there is a fairy. And the artwork is really, really cute. So it is in that vein, and that is the experience that you're going to have with it.
I think it's silly fun. We've actually enjoyed it. We played it a lot.
We play it very quickly.
We play it super quick.
And that's part of the charm for us. Like we just say, go. Ready, go.
Yeah.
Go, like really, really quick.
Put the pressure on each other just to kind of make a guess. And there's something about like when you see a 4 is the card and you're like, I'm just going to take the safe bet. I'm going up. And then all of a sudden a 2 gets pulled and you're just like, how could that be possible? Like, what are the odds of that,
Yes. So the game is the way it sounds. It's literally guess what card is coming up next. But for some reason, of all the games that I've played of that category, this one has had the most charm. And I enjoyed it more than I expected it to.
When you taught it to me, I was like
that's it?
That's
right?
It. Like,
but that's part of the charm.
The fact that it's just over so quickly, it's a nice little icebreaker style of game.
And by the way, Fairy is designed by Mashiyu. I believe all these small box games are from Japanese designers. So the next one, Panda Panda, is designed by Kaya Miyano, who I believe is also the designer of Nana.
Yeah.
Which is a game that we have really, really enjoyed.
We learned it when we were in Japan. The two people from Thinker Themer, Amy and Maggie, they taught
Amy and Maggie.
Two human beings
Yes.
who run Thinker Themer.
Yes.
They taught us that game, and so we've been really, really enjoying that one as well.
Now, as for Panda Panda, this is a more strategic game. It plays a little bit longer, I think, than Fairy.
Yeah.
Because in this game, it comes with a deck of cards that are all labeled different letters. And everybody starts with the same number of cards, as well as a reference sheet that tells you what combination of cards you need to have in your hand in order to win. Now, the combination of letters that you'll need to collect will vary depending on the number of cards you have. So if you have 6 cards, it's going to be a different combination. If you have 5 cards, it's going to be a different combination. And on your turn, the gameplay is actually really simple. You're going to either discard a card from your hand, again, making your hand size smaller, which changes the scoring condition. Or you can draw a card from the deck.
Making your hand bigger, of course.
Or from somebody else's discard pile. And if you choose to discard a card and you happen to discard the letter A, then everybody will be required to pass a card, I believe, to the player on their right. And so that's pretty much it. You keep on taking turns like this until at the beginning of your turn, you have a winning card combination.
Yes. So you can't end the game by discarding a card and then revealing. So you have to kind of go through the entire motion. So if you are in a winning position, somebody discards an A, which is the most abundant card value in or quantity of cards in the entire deck, and you're in a winning position, you are now forced to pass one of your winning cards off. And then now you have to reset and kind of rebuild from there. So there's a lot of kind of gamesmanship that goes on in this game because as you see people start to whittle down their deck, you're like, Monique has discarded 2 cards. Is she close to winning?
Yeah.
So now maybe I have a hand of cards that is in kind of a winning position that need these A's to be in play. Do I discard an A to force her to have to get rid of a card that's probably a winning card for her? So it gets kind of heady in that way.
Yeah, it is pretty strategic for a game of that size.
And I feel the board gaming anxiety that I kind of mentioned in videos in this particular game. Like where I feel like I'm so close, I just need this one card and there's that B in her discard pile. If I can get that, keep it and just maintain it.
So silly.
Yeah.
It's just letters and pandas. I don't know how the pandas apply to the theme, but it's really cute. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. For some reason, that trying to figure out the combinations and that just like that card exchanging is really interesting.
Having that mechanism of if somebody discards the A, everybody has to move a card around really kind of creates this aspect of the game that would have been lacking, I think, in the game
if it were just about finding those combinations. Yeah. Between the two, I definitely enjoyed Panda Panda more, a lot more. I feel like that is definitely in line with our small box gaming tastes.
It travels really well.
Yeah, it travels really well.
It's one of those games that I think we'll be putting in our bag every time we go somewhere.
But that's essentially it for the all-play games. Now, we did mention that we have 2 more of those small box titles. And as soon as we're able to play them enough, then we will feature them on a future episode.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the last game of today's episode. This is a family weight game, but really more towards a kids game.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes, and this is a game that we played for the first time when we were at Gen Con. We didn't know that this was even coming.
I didn't know this existed, yeah.
An option of game. And it is called...
Yeah, this one is called Spotlight.
Yes.
So this is a cooperative hidden objects game.
Yes.
In the vein of Where's Waldo, I guess you can say. So
Where's Waldo?
It has like the art style of kind of like Where's Waldo, where essentially the reason why it's called Spotlight is everybody has a flashlight, and you have this image and a transparency that kind of gets superimposed over it, and it's kind of got this dim, dark tint to it. So the flashlight that you have is going to go underneath and in between, sandwiched between the picture and that transparency, and it kind of really creates this look of a spotlight on that image. And the second that in the demonstration that they brought out the thing, and we were just kind of like, okay, what is this?
Yeah.
And he put that flashlight under, and you can instantly see the illumination of the spotlight.
It was amazing.
It just clicked right with us, yeah.
It was such an unexpected technology. You know, it's just a transparency, and it's just a cardboard spotlight, but really, it really does make it seem, makes it seem as if it's a spotlight
truly with the
that's
flashlight looking around
on this board. And so this game is for 1 to 5 players, and each player has their own board that has that transparency, and it's a part of a bigger image. So everybody's board is going to be a different part of that image, and some of the boards do have overlap in terms of the scenery. And so the way the game works is this is a fully cooperative game in which we are going to be flipping over 1 card per round and trying to find the object or character that is on that card as many times as we can on our own player boards.
Yeah,
so there is a maximum number.
Correct, yes, because there's only so many that are going to be actually on our images. But some of the images could be something like a beach ball, or maybe somebody who's in swim trunks.
Yes, or a ballerina, like a very specific character. It's very similar to like Where's Waldo, if you were a kid from the 90s.
Yeah.
And the board or the game box actually becomes the game board because we are all trying to do this while racing the moon. So the components are so cute. The art is really nice.
Yeah, you don't want the moonlight to come in and capture up your spotlight.
Yes, we want to make it all home before the moon does. It's something like that. But the game does have different modes of play. So if you want a more challenging experience, that is an option. You can make the moon go faster. At some points in the game, you might face a penalty in which your spotlight becomes a little bit dimmer, in which you would actually have to flip over the spotlight, revealing a smaller circle.
Yeah, so maybe it starts, this is not how big, but it'll be like this. And then because of the penalty, now your spotlight is even smaller. So with the timer going, you have a smaller radius to actually see these different images that you're trying to look for.
But that is essentially it. You know, the game is like a 15-minute game because each card round that you play is timed. So you have a very short amount of time to find all of those characters or whatever is on the card on your specific player board. But that's essentially all there is to Spotlight.
Yeah.
Now, we've played it just with adults. Like, we haven't played it with any kids, so we can't really talk about the experience if you have kids and you're interested in playing something like this. Now, I will say they are transparencies, so I don't know how fragile they are.
Yeah.
If kids can get a little hyper, so I don't know if if bending it backwards or something will completely destroy the game. But just keep that in mind.
Just like anything, right?
Just like anything. Yeah. I really enjoy Where's Waldo books. I was really obsessed with those when I was a kid. Yeah. I love like books like I Spy, that if you're familiar with that generation. And so I was really taken by this game. We've actually played it, just the two of us. Yeah. And I had a really good time. Yeah. I do see it a shelf life with a game like this in the sense that we'll play it a few more times and then we will probably be done with it.
We'll probably give it to our nephew or something like that because this would be perfect for them.
Yes, but it's definitely something that you can pass along, and it's a really fun experience if you enjoy find it games like that.
And of course, if anybody asks, you will not be able to remember 6 months now. Oh, all the beach balls are in this corner and that corner. There's just no way. There's so much art.
The guy in the ducky suit or something.
There's so much art that if you can remember that is very impressive.
But that's essentially it. That is Spotlight.
Yep.
We're always on the lookout for family weight games, or especially games that families can play with their kids, because we know a lot of people out there are really looking to find games that they can play with their kids that they'll enjoy.
Yeah.
So if this sounds interesting to you, this is a game that is for 6 years and up.
6 and up, yeah.
Yes, by Horrible Guild.
There you go. Spotlight. Well, there you go. That is our Let's Talk Board Games episode. 5 games we've covered today. Hopefully, we can get some more done in the coming weeks. If you've played any of these games, please let us know in the comments down below how you feel about them and what you think. If there's any games that we should be on the lookout for or games that you have been playing, also let us know about those because we are always interested in your experiences. So thank you all so much for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.